Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I have just made a mental note to self. Do not run up and down the whole length of this building twice in the 2 minutes prior to you turning up to do a presentation, which is, thank you. The comment from the floor was not at my age. I have to say, I suspect I'm the youth policy of this room, but I'm not going to go there. This little project kicked off. I think it was a conversation, probably somewhere in the bowels of the British Library. David Beach was there, Chris King was there, I think, with myself and one or two others. And we said, wouldn't it be great if? And that if turned into an awful lot of work for a lot of people who are actually in this room. But I'm not going to spoil the story. I'm going to pass over to Paul Skinner in a few moments, who's going to talk about what the library is. And then Steve Jarvis is going to say what we actually did with it. And I'm going to finish off by saying what we can do next. So, Paul, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Mr. President, members and guests, I'm here to tell you a little bit about the Crawford Philatelic Library and the Digitization project that has arisen out of it. The project itself is a collaboration between the Philatelic collections at the British Library, funding from the British Philatelic Trust, the Royal Philatelic Society, and using the online resource of the Global Philatelic Library. So, who was Crawford? James Ludovic Lindsay, 26th Earl of Crawford, 9th Earl of Balcarres, born 1847, and he lived until 1913. Lord Crawford first became interested in philately whilst he was at Eton, and that interest was reignited about 1898 when he purchased the Colonel Shard collection. As well as his interest in philately, he was also he was a bit of a polymath. So he was president of the Royal Astronomical Society, president of the Royal Photographic Society, a trustee of the British Museum, as well as being president of the Philatelic Society London. Not all at the same time, but at different stages. And you will notice from that photograph here that he's represented here, and there's also a smaller photograph of him here. Very imposing figure, certainly over 6 foot. I think it was 6'3" or something like that. He had red hair, and for that reason he was known as Redbeard by his family. That was his nickname. And he was certainly an imposing figure and well known and well liked in all of those societies. He came from a family that had a magnificent library. His father was certainly a very active bibliophile, and the library was of some 200,000 volumes. And so it was a natural progression that when our Lord Crawford became interested in philately, he tried to create a philatelic library as well. And his aim at that time was not just to collect philatelic books, but every philatelic book that had been published and written up until that time. So he was an acquisitive bibliophile. So how did he tackle this? One of the things was he purchased 2 major philatelic libraries, one from America, that of John Kerr Tiffany, a name that some of you may have heard before. He purchased that in 1901. That, to this day, the Americans rue the fact that that library is now in this country and not available to them, because a lot of that material is unique or extremely rare. And with this digitization project, this now allows this material to be seen not just in America and this country, but all around the world. That's the brilliant thing about it. Another library that he purchased was in 1908. He purchased the library of Judge Heinrich Frankel of Germany, who in his turn had already purchased the library of Sigmund Friedel of Austria. So you can see that in this way, Crawford was managing to buy some very significant libraries. This gives you a few of the details. Reputedly at that time, it contained 95% of all literature published up until 1913 when Crawford died. So total, it says there 8,000 different titles. That's into the different subsections. It's actually about 4,000 different volumes. Now obviously this library this size requires careful handling, and in 1901 he engaged Edward Denny Bacon to help arrange, organise and catalogue the collection. So in 1911, Bacon produced the first initial catalogue of the library, the Bibliotheca Louisiana, Volume 7. In 1926, there was a further supplement to that, and in 1938, a further addendum. In 1913, unfortunately, the Earl of Crawford died, and at that time, his library was made as a bequest to the British nation, and it went to the British Museum. The Earl was very conscious of the fact that this was a very important library, and he wanted it to be available for philatelic research and available to philatelists as far as possible. And this is something that the British Library has tried to engender and promote, and this is the development of that process. So when the library arrived, then it was the British Museum, it was a session stamped, and the volumes were marked Crawford and a volume number. So that remains a shelf number today. And if you look in the catalogues, you will see the title, and it will be followed by the Crawford 238 or whatever the volume number is, and that is the shelf mark. Now the library has always been available to researchers, as I say, in the reading rooms, either at the British Museum or at the British Library. So one of the challenges about that is that not only do you have the wear and tear of people looking at the books, but because of the time that it was being collected, you know, sort of this is 1890s through to 1910 was when Crawford was actually collecting the material, and some of it is earlier, obviously. At that time, the paper that was being used was very poor quality. So because of the conditions, you know, the paper trade was moving away from the nice rag paper to the rather cheaper, almost newsprint type paper for a lot of the publishing that was going on. And that then presents a problem for conservation reasons. So in 1985, my predecessor, David Beach, instigated an important conservation program for the library, because it was at that time it was in quite variable condition, and so that work may include deacidification of the paper, supporting pages with Japanese paper, rebinding leather or buckram, and retaining the historical book plates and items of interest within the volumes. So that was instigated about 1985, and as part of that program, it was decided that a microfilm copy of the volumes would be made as a preservation surrogate. So if anything untoward happened to any of the volumes, we would still have a copy of them. That is a very important point. In 1991, in an effort, again, to promote the collection and make it more available, a catalogue that was based on the original 1911 version and with the addendum and the supplements, it was all put together into the catalogue of the Crawford Library of Philatelic Literature at the British Library. In 1997, the library was transferred from the British Museum to the British Library when the British Library opened. In 2014, that catalogue was put online in the British Library Explore programme. So you can actually go online and you can look at the British Library site and you can put in a search for Philatelic volume and it will turn up the item that you're looking for in the Crawford Library. But it doesn't provide you with a digital copy, it's just a catalogue entry. So the next step in this process of trying to make this library more available was to digitise it. And this is where the microfilming becomes important because a decision was made to digitise from the microfilm. This is where this is Steve's story really, because this is where he comes into it. I would just say that with the digitisation, this has involved a lot of work from staff and colleagues at the library, as well as a lot of help from the Royal Philatelic Society, which Steve is going to tell you about, and friends in other places as well. So that work is at a stage now where it is available to see, but it's still ongoing. There's still quite a lot of work to do, and I'm sure that Steve will tell you a bit more about it. So if you want further details about Crawford and the library, there's been 2 supplements to the London Philatelist, the recent one done by David Beach in the March supplement, and an earlier one done by Ron Negus in 2002. That's just our details. If you feel so inclined to contact us to ask us any questions, then please do. I will now hand over to Steve and he will tell you a little bit more about the Royal's participation in this project.
Thank you, Paul. Can I introduce my lovely assistant, Mark Bailey, here, who will drive the technology for me. Okay.
Sorry, Steve. Sorry. My fault.
You okay?
I've gone forward. Oh, did you do that?
I did that.
Right.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah. Hands free. Right. Very quick background in terms of the Global Philatelic Library, which we've.
Sorry. This one is
Talk-
close. Sorry.
Yeah.
Doing well so far.
It's seamless, isn't it? Right. There you go.
Okay. Which we started work on about 4 years ago. We've now got 27 libraries who have contributed their indexes of what they hold in their library. So what we're doing is we're sort of conglomerating them together so that it's a focal point for anybody who wants to find information. It covers all around the world. So we've got Australia, we've got lots in Europe and also North America. So lots of libraries in there. When we first started talking about this, I wasn't involved at the very beginning of it, but because of the other work I've been doing with Frank, then he quickly got me involved, and we've been working on this for 3 to 4 years now. We had a conversation about it. It was probably down in the King's Head, And so we thought, yeah, we can do this. I'm not sure we realised how much work was going to be involved in it, but there you go. We identified that there were 4 parts to it. The digital list of titles, the images, linking those two together, and the search engine. So I'll talk briefly about each. Paul said they'd got all the raw information, so if you like, the metadata about the list of titles and what they contained. They had the images of the pages on microfilm, so we had those. We didn't have a way of linking the two together. But what happened was Frank Wharton really took the lead on this. And if you want to know how he linked it together, then you need to talk to him privately. But it was a bit of a black box job, and he just slaved away at spreadsheets for about a year, I think. And then we needed a way of presenting this information to the world. And so we needed to put together a search engine. British Library have got a great long list of projects that they need to work on, and so it wasn't particularly near the top of their priority list. So it was at that point that we agreed that we would help them out and to host the system, but we'll do it for 5 years, and then at the end of the 5 years, if British Library want to take it back, we'll pass back what we did to them at that point. The first thing we had to do was to make sure that the films were okay. And in fact, they'd been preserved very well, so they'd been done to the highest quality of the technology at the time, and they'd been preserved very well. To put them on the web, we needed to convert them into PDF documents for Adobe Acrobat. So some money was obtained from the Philatelic Trust, which allowed the British Library to organise creating PDFs from the films. And then Frank and myself and other people got together and decided, okay, how are we going to put all this together and build a search engine for it? So we did that. One of the problems that we hit was when we got some stats on the actual files of the PDFs. They're absolutely enormous. They wouldn't fit on our web server. So we had to arrange for a new web server to be hired, and we got funding for that from the Philatelic Fund. So that allowed us to host the information, and that came through about 3 months ago, was it, Mark? Something like that. We wanted to present this information as soon as possible, and particularly we wanted to launch it at the New York exhibition earlier this year. So, so what we did was we put up a, thank you. So we put up a temporary system, and it's the temporary system that I'm going to show you today. But we're going to be working on a major rewrite of the Royals website and the Global Philatelic Library, and we hope that that will come to fruition by the end of this calendar year. Right. Of the information there, we've only got about half of it viewable. And the reason for that are various things. So there's in copyright ones which we can't show on the web. Now, in copyright doesn't actually mean that quite. It means that we're not sure of the copyright status. So until we get explicit knowledge that something is out of copyright, we can't show it on the web. We also found that there were some files in there, or some items in there, where there weren't any PDF files. And we're trying to track those back to see what happened. Were they not filmed originally, or has the film been lost? So we're trying to track down these additional ones to add into our list. Right, if we can go on to the actual demo. Go to the homepage. Yep, right. This is the Global Philatelic Library homepage. The URL is there at the top there for you to go to. Can you click on Contributing Libraries? So this is just a list of all the libraries that have contributed their indexes of material to us. So yeah, there's 20 odd of them in there, 27 I think. And you can see the scale of the number of indexes that we've got for them. So for instance, that one there, nearly 27,000 from that Postal Museum of Finland. And the data is in the RPSL database, which will become the Global Philatelic Library part of it. But if it's also in other databases like the APRL's database, then that's indicated there. So you can decide where you want to go to for your next step in terms of digging into the detail of what's available. Okay, can you go back to the home page, please? Okay, if you click on under this bit here, click here for more information. So if you go there. Right. Okay, so the publications that Paul mentioned are all here, so you can actually go and download them. So the two supplements and the original document of the catalogue is quite big, 40 megabytes. So we've split it up into various segments that you can download individually. So that's that. But to get to the actual search, you need to click on that button there. And there's a similar button on the home page of the GPL, so you don't have to go into the About. So we have a simple search panel there. Can you type in the first one? Meikle. Yep. Yeah, it's single E, then double E. Okay, can you scroll down a little bit for me? Okay, so you can see that we've got 95 hits with that word there, and these are the various columns of metadata information that we've come up with. This first column here is, although it says title, it's actually series title, and I'll show you an example of that in a minute. The other things that aren't quite so obvious, you've got publication year, so it's the year of that particular publication, but if it's a serial, it also tries to give you an idea of when that serial finished. Not always 100% correct, but it's the best information we had. Crawford number is very important. That's the shelf number within Crawford. And then over here, you've got some notes about which were in the original data from the British Library, but we've also added in some notes ourselves. And a hyperlink here to the PDF. So if you just click on anyone will do, that one up there.
Yeah, I'll go for a small.
Yeah.
Just for time reasons. There you go. That's it. As quick as that.
Okay. So yeah, for the small ones, it's very quick, but some of them are very large and will take quite a bit longer. But you can see from that the quality is very good. It's quite readable.
Of course, you can make it bigger as well.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah. Yeah. You can zoom on it with normal browser things there. Right. If you go back to the search. So scroll up. Just scroll. Oh, yeah. Close down the PDF and scroll up.
Yeah. So we're going to change
Yep, change the search and show you a Boolean search. Philatelic Journal in Great Britain. Yep, that's okay. Great Britain in there. So this helps to narrow down your search a bit. Yep. Yep. So this, we'll ignore the first one for a start, but this one here, Philatelic Journal of Great Britain. This is one that I have actually been working on myself very recently. It says 1891, but it actually runs through to 1913 in there, and it tells you that PDF is in preparation. That's because the PDF is 10,000 pages and about 5 gigabytes. So it would be sort of, if you wanted to download that, it would probably take you about a day and a half. So what we're doing is we're going through the larger PDFs and trying to cut them down into manageable sizes. So that particular one, I have just finished cutting it down into per annum. So that each year, and if you go to the, I've actually got the file here, so the top one. Yep. So this gives, if you scroll down, so this is the 1900 version of it. What I found within this is that each year has got a nice index associated with it. So that would be something else that we can do. We can grab the data from these indexes and put them in as easily searchable elsewhere. Could you go down to page 9? The other thing that I noticed when I was chopping this up was it said it was the organ of the Sheffield and Scottish Philatelic Societies. I thought, that might be quite interesting for collectors or somebody who's doing some historical research into their own societies. So if you put in a find, PDF find, edit find, type in Sheffield, there we go. Yep. So it's picking up and giving reports of society meetings. So there's various societies in here, Scottish Society, and they're doing reports on other things as well. So I just thought I'd give you an example of the sorts of things that are buried within this, that sort of, and you come across them unexpectedly. The other thing that I came across was, well-known philatelist, Mr. Castle here. If you open up the biography PDF for us. Chris King has been doing a lot of work on biographies. Can you close the bookmarks? There, click on that if you can. Okay, and just scroll down a little bit. That's it. So there were up. So the first page is showing, that's it. So what I found was there were loads of biographies, and nearly 200 biographies in different editions in there, which I've extracted. And that will go to Chris King for his work on biographies of, if you like, fathers of philately and people around about 100 years ago. So there's all sorts of things in there that I thought were quite interesting. If you go down to page 58, this is William Brown, because it wasn't just collectors, it was also doing dealers at the time as well. So William Brown ran stamp shop in Salisbury. So if you scroll down for about 4 pages. So it gives a background to him, and on page 62, I think it was, it doesn't come out very well on here, but it's better on my PC. But that's a picture of him at Paris exhibition, his stall there. So I thought that was a very pretty picture, but it doesn't quite come out on here. Right, can you go back to the Meikle search? Yeah, put that in again. I think that's the wrong one, isn't it? Oh, no, you're right. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, get rid of that. Right. If you scroll down till we come to the Evans, Edward, Benjamin. Too far. It's in alphabetical order, so it should begin with E. Up. Yeah, there we are. Too far again. Up again. It was there. Go right back up again. It's near the beginning. If you scroll to the top. No. Scroll to the very top of that page. Right till you're a long way down. You need to go up about half a mile. Keep going. You're in the H's. One more. Whoa. Okay. Right. I mentioned that it's gone again. I was using the lighter. Okay. Down. You're in the C's. There we are. Right. Okay. Thank you. Right. One of the things with the titles, I won't use this, was that we had things that, like the title begins after the slash mark. So here we have a catalogue of the postage stamps, and there we've got the Philatelic catalogue. But they're both related publications, so they would have been sorted one under A and one under T. So what I've attempted to do is to put a series title in against them to try and group the related titles together, particularly important for things like auction catalogues and serials, but can also be useful for just ordinary books. It's not perfect, but I'll keep working on it to get it better. Can you search on 1864? Right, so this shows, it's actually managed to pick up the publication year in some cases, so that's useful for looking for really old documents. It picks up other things as well, so it's not just related to things that were published in 1864. But it shows on these pages the different categories we've got. So the top one there says no PDF. We haven't got a PDF for it at the moment, but we're going to look for it. We've then got the third one down there where the PDF is there, tells you how big it is and how many pages, so you'll get some idea of how long it's going to take to download. PDF preparation in progress. These are the ones that we're still working on. We've been taking the original PDFs, which were gigantic. We've been OCRing them. Mark Copley down there has been running OCRing programs for about the last 6 months against these files, and he's got a few more months still to go. So as we OCR the files, we're putting them up. So we will continue to complete the PDF preparations of these. And then right down the bottom there, you can see the in copyright. So they're the ones that unfortunately we can't show you yet, but we're also going to be working on those to try and get more and more of those available. Quick search on Crawford 70, if you would. So this is the shelf mark, 70. This is a stay up there near the top. No, near the top.
These are all 701, 701.
Yeah, can you just hold it there if you can. Right, the second one down is another example of these gigantic files, 30,000 pages in this one. So again, I've been splitting it down into years. So these are the United States Postmaster reports. So they should be available within the month on there. I had a look to see what else was available on the web. Similar ones are there on the Richard Frajola website, but he's only probably got about 30 of them, and we've got 60 running through from the 1840s right up into the early 1900s. So I think that'll be a major resource for the US collectors to go and have a look at as well. So it's not just GB related. And as I looked through the PDFs, it had the book plates for Crawford, but a number of them also had the book plates for the Tiffany library as well, which was interesting to see. Right. Well, you can do, but nothing will happen. So it'll come up with an error.
Yeah, that'll give an error at the moment.
That'll give an error at the moment because it's not there. Okay, some limitations of what we built so far. If you just search on Great Britain, no spelling.
Yeah.
'On its own, please. 75 hits. If you change that to OR GB, and we've got another 50 hits. So that is just showing that we haven't got synonyms in here. So you have to be very precise in the search term that you put in there at the moment. When we build the new website and incorporate this in there, we'll have a synonym capability. So you won't have to think, well, what else could it be in there? So rather than just putting, you can just put GB in, and it'll also find the Great Britain items. Are you up to typing in magazine Philatelic? Yep. Two, three, three. Hey. Take away the or in the search term. Change the or to an and if you were just to be on the safe side. Okay. Yep. So do a search on that. Yep. So this is showing the diacritics. So that one works, but if Mark changed the accented E to take off the accent. Nothing found, because we haven't built the diacritics into this temporary system. It will be there when we rework. Yep. Okay, that's all the prepared searches, but if anybody wants to... No, I don't want to do that one. I'm skipping that one. If anybody wants to shout out another search, then Mark will have a go at putting it in. So anyone want to have a go?
Hadlow. Hadlow. H-A-D-L-O-W. H-A-D-L-O-W.
Hadlows, like that. We're going to run a book on how many hits? 2, 0. All right, here we go. Hadlow. It gets mentioned 6 times. Always looking at it. William Hadlow. Yes.
Father or son?
Around about 1891 through 1985. That's the time. Anything else?
Well, that was a relief. It worked.
Gibbons. Yeah, there's plenty of those. Okay.
Eric Hill.
Eric? G-I-double-L?
Yeah.
No.
No.
No, a bit too late, I think. It's only goes up to sort of 1913 or so, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, India, there'll be found some in India. You get rid of it, Gil. Plenty of information about India.
Now, this is only searching the metadata that we've got available. As I mentioned, Mark Copley is in the process of OCRing this, so we've actually got the text available. And the plan is on the new website, the search will actually search the text within the PDF. So that will bring out a whole load of new search results for people to go through, and you'll probably be suffering from information overload at that point and have about 10,000 to go through. David.
Can I have a go at bacon? And eggs.
D.H. Bacon and, of course, Edward Denny Bacon.
Okay, so it works most of the time. We have found one or two little foibles with it, but we won't tell you about those. We'll let you trip over those yourself. Yeah, but we won't put a lot of work into sorting out this system here. Our efforts are going into the new system, which we hope will be available by the end of the year. Okay, Frank, do you want to wrap up?
Yeah, thank you.
You go back to the PowerPoint.
Thank you. I hope you've got a feeling for two things. First of all, how much fun this has been. And it really has been fantastic fun. But secondly, it's been a huge amount of work. The number of hours that has collectively gone into this, all I can say is I'm really grateful that nobody had to pay for them. But there you go. What are we doing next? That top one is actually quite important, and the breadth of the Royals contacts worldwide became really terribly important here. We did originally have a much, much longer list of titles of books which we had not proven were out of copyright. And what we had to do was try and prove individual laws of individual countries. We had to first of all understand what their laws were, and secondly work out the date of death of all the individual authors. That was an absolute nightmare.
Frank, can I comment on that? Because I think you're making work for yourself, because copyright is governed by the Berne Convention of 1883, which virtually now every country in the world has a signature, and that has the principle of common treatment. So British copyright laws apply to material.
For those of you who didn't hear that, Ian Stevenson's telling me that the Berne Convention covers all this. All I can say is that is not the interpretation of the British Library legal team. And we have banged our head against very heavy, how can I put it? We haven't found a liberal interpretation of the law. I'll leave it at that. Well, can I suggest the British Library probably haven't got a copy of it? No, that's been flippant. What we've done, the British Library legal advice team has been very, very strict with interpreting when a book isn't out of copyright. And what we've had to do is look at every author individually for works which have got an author identified, establish their date of death, which is actually not a trivial exercise, particularly if it's called Smith, and then actually work out what the law is in the country of origin, and then actually get evidential proof that it is out of copyright. And at that point and that point only, the British Library have allowed us to release the PDF to the internet. So we've got an awful lot of work left to do. And what we did, we reached out to all the Royals representatives And I have to say the people in China, Norway, Italy, USA, and one or two of the Latin American companies, I must mention Italy as well, they were brilliant. And the representatives came back to us. I can't remember, there's probably about 40 or 50 different countries of publication represented on the database. It's just an amazing mix of literatures out there. So I'm afraid the British Library lawyers don't have the same interpretation as you, Ian. I'll move on. We do have a missing 22% of books, which were either not scanned, or if they have been filmed, and if they have been filmed, we don't actually know where the films have got to. There are projects underway to actually either try and find the films or actually find alternative copies. For example, our good friends in the Green Foundation Library in Toronto have already scanned about a dozen titles which were on our missing list, and they very generously gave us the PDFs, which is fantastic. Steve's mentioned we will be rebuilding the website later this year, and the text recognition. I don't know if anybody walks past this building about 2 o'clock in the morning, but you'll see a dim green light coming out of the top but one floor, and that is the PC, which has been running 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, running an OCR job. And it's been running for many, many months now. And we give it a chunk at a time and say, here, I'll have a go at this, and we come back a day later and see if it's finished. And it is an enormous, absolutely enormous IT job to do that, which is why many of the texts, PDFs rather, which you've seen, are in fact word searchable. And we do actually have a plan to pull out all of those texts and actually put them to a separate database and make it searchable and link it all back to the PDFs. That isn't there yet, but I hope it will be later this year. And also we want to, for example, allow you just to search the author field or just the title field or just the data publication field. That isn't there in this prototype, but we do know how to do that. And finally, a few thank yous. There's a bit of a mixture on there. The ones on the left-hand side are individuals, and they've all contributed in many different ways. One or two have been very generous with funding. One or two people have actually given us checks, which have been absolutely essential to actually allow us to buy the servers we need to put all this on it. When the Royal originally volunteered just to run this service, we didn't quite realise how much space 1.3 million pages takes, and we couldn't actually afford it, so we had to go and buy a bigger server. And then you've got people in there who've actually contributed their IT skills or the bibliographic skills. I will mention Mark Wilson down at the bottom. Myself, Mark and Steve all have got between us over 100 years as IT professionals. We couldn't actually solve one particular problem. And Mark came along and he did it overnight. We were both thrilled and disappointed at the same time. He's an amazing guy. He lives in America. And on the right-hand side, you'll see institutions who've helped us. The Green Foundation has been incredibly generous, both with their time and also with their money. They've actually supported us financially. And that's it, folks. So thank you for your attention. This is a repeat of the presentation I personally gave in New York a couple of weeks ago, but this was much better because those guys actually knew what they were talking about, had done it today. So thank you for your time. If anybody's got any questions, please address them to either Paul or Mark. Thank you very much. Oh, we had another question, yes.
Well, I mean, I'm not the only one who's totally mind blown by the amount of work that's gone into this. And there was mention earlier of colleagues and members of the Royal. But are you using any outside volunteers? And I'm thinking particularly of U3A, because I know that Mark has used them for U3A, have you not? And there's a great resource. Or is it not necessary? Does it need to be specialised insiders?
Okay, the question was, are we using U3A? University of the Third Age, for those who don't understand the acronym. The answer is that we need people with very specialist IT skills or very specialist bibliographic knowledge. And we're pulling it all together very slowly but surely. I have to say the biggest problem we have now is actually making sure we've got enough money to pay for the servers in future years. We found enough money to actually pay for the one-off development to build the website in the first place. Sorry, the new one, not the temporary one. But going forward, we may still be a bit strapped for cash. But I hope we will solve that problem going forward. Thank you. Another question about Robin Pizer.
How accurate is the OCR, especially with the old-fashioned German script?
The question was, how accurate is the OCRing? English is very good indeed. subject to the quality of the paper. I'm sure some of you know what bleed through is, where you've got very poor quality paper and the ink has spread through from the back. Inevitably, the OCRing is not perfect. It has a lot of problems with half signs and quarter symbols and the rest of it, and also diacritics and accents and cedillas and all the rest of it. The one thing which it is completely impossible at is Germanic script. And I have to say, I haven't found any professional OCRing software that can handle that. So if you take Germanic script and poor quality paper, then I'm afraid you're better off to read my handwriting by OCRing, or indeed my doctor's. So I'm afraid, be prepared to be disappointed. Right, one more.
Frank, just a couple of thoughts. The missing titles. I wonder if it would be a good idea to put a list of those in the LP, so that if anyone out there has them, they can lend them to the project. And also, of course, Google Book Search has done a massive scanning of titles in all major libraries, not just the BL. And I wonder if you looked at, a lot of Google Book Search scanning is very poor quality because it's done in a hurry. But some of the titles may be there. There may well be some copyright issues.
For the benefit of the people watching online, the question was, have we tried other resources such as Google Books for the missing titles? We haven't yet given up hope of not turning out the original films. What I will say is that the quality of reproduction we have engendered from the British Library films, which was fantastic, and the PDFing and OCRing, is actually very good. And we've actually been disappointed with some of the other products. However, a poor product is better than no product. We do have different people in the world have got different interpretations of how rigorously one should keep to the law. We are a royal society and we tend to take things very seriously when it comes to this, and the British Library lawyers are our guiding light on this one. It has been suggested, for example, we can move our entire database to America rather than on a British server, in which case everything would be out of copyright because it's published before 1922. But I'm afraid we don't do that sort of thing. One more question.
Well, I was interested in the remark about the German script and the difficulty. Have you approached any of the German libraries to see how they manage if they transcribe that?
Okay, the question was, have we approached any German specialists to help us understand how to OCR Old German? The short answer is no, but I have done that in a previous project, and basically everybody tells me it's almost impossible. But the answer is no, I haven't done that, but we're only really getting to that stage now. Most of the German fonts just don't read. It's quite simple. Right, I personally would like a cup of tea, so I'm not going to dwell too much longer on this. Can I just say thank you for all coming and listening to us, but a huge thank you to Paul and Steve and everybody else who's been involved. So well done, gentlemen. Thank you.